I'm a student of Japanese. Although I'm not your extremely dedicated study 8 hours a day past N1 in a year using the AJET method guy-ish person, I do share this relatively common curiosity some other Japanese students have, which is relatively advanced concepts in the Japanese learning journey, even though I haven't mastered yet exactly how to use the wa and ga particles, but I digress. It's a joke I've heard more than once that if you want to stand out in the Japanese learning community, you should probably learn the Kansai dialect, but that wouldn't really make you stand out that much because enough people are learning it already. But what even is the Kansai dialect? Hopefully today we'll be able to talk a little bit about it, not too much that I'd have to search for 2 more weeks and make this video boring as hell, but probably enough to make you finish this video with a feeling of, hey, I've learned something new, so let's do this. The Kansai dialect, also referred as
Kansai-ben,
is not actually one dialect, but a group of dialects spoken in the Kansai region. Its technical name is
近畿方言、
but sometimes people call it
大阪弁、
because Osaka is the major city of Kansai and has become kind of the face of the dialect group as a whole. Just so you can have some references, Japan has 8 regions, each of them being subdivided in many prefectures. Besides Hokkaido, the only prefecture in Hokkaido is the Hokkaido prefecture. But Kansai has 7 prefectures in total, so yeah, the information here will be only a rough approximation of the Kansai-ben. We should always keep in mind though, that this is not just an approximation, but each person has their own unique way of speaking, so this shouldn't be a guideline of how every single person in Kansai speaks, obviously. Also, whenever we're talking about Kansai-ben, which we'll be taking here as the same thing as this overall representation of the Kansai dialect group, we'll compare it to Standard Japanese, which here will be synonymous with the Tokyo dialect. Before we proceed though, if you'd prefer to read this instead of watching a video, I have an article on Substack, and if you want to help a little further, I also have an extra paid section there, so consider checking out. Now back to the video. Japanese has a thing with verbs. It's a daunting aspect of the language for non-native speakers, and it's definitely something that you spend quite some time studying. One of the most surprising aspects of Japanese to me when I first started learning it was seeing that there is a negative conjugation for verbs. A verb like
食べる
would be conjugated as
食べない
in the negative form. In the Kansai dialect though, this
ない
negative form becomes
変、
also negative past verbs get the same treatment.
食べなかった
Would be conjugated as
食べへんかった、
in Kansai-ben. Even though that is quite a unique thing of this dialect group, nowadays a lot of people in the region have been using the standard
ない
verb ending too. There is also the case for verbs which extend a mora if the stem consists of one mora only, so you can stumble upon forms like.
ねえへん、
By the way, mora is a complicated subject and different authors have different conceptualizations of what a mora even is, but just so we can be brief, a mora is a unit that measures syllable weight. Depending on where you live in Kansai, verbs with
いる
endings will also have a unique negative form. So take the example of
いる
which might become
見えひん、
instead of
見ない
in the negative form. So yeah, another detail for the books. As a side note, the polite form of these Kansai-specific negative forms do exist, but they are not very common. Chances are you're still going to hear
食べません
instead of
食べまえん、
in Kansai-ben. Or so I've been told. If you're from Kansai, please let me know if that's the case. There are other grammar points on this topic alone, but we should move on. Although most guys will point out to the negative forms as the main verbal change in Kansai-ben, there is one other major verb grammar point that undergoes some changes, which is the imperative form. In Standard Japanese, you might hear the suffix
なさい
being thrown around. It is sometimes called the light imperative, as we can say overall that it is polite. In Kansai-ben though, this form can just become the V stem form. While this is a strong or imperative command, it can also be used as suggestion on occasion. So no
食べなさい
and
寝なさい
are really needed
食べ、
and
ね、
suffice. Now sit down because we're in for a wild ride here. I'll do my best to make this section as briefly as I humanly can. There are many, and I do mean many, particles in Japanese. If you want to be technical, there are dozens of them around and their uses are often so subtle, there's no way we could go through all of them. But we could go through the most common ones that undergo some changes in Kansai-ben. By the way, if you want to know more about Japanese particles and the basics of it, definitely check Jouzu Juls' video, I'm gonna link it in this video's description. The
ね
is commonly taught as an ending sentence particle, although the full story is much more complicated than this. The short version of the long story, as the ne e particle serves as some affective common ground, part of the omoyari concept, which is essentially one of social common ground of understanding and cooperation. It's less of a strict functional particle, and some linguists might be out there to kill me now, but more of a pragmatic one in a sense. In Kansai-ben though, this particle can become
な
which must not be confused with the negative imperative copula na, also not with the suffix for adjectives, also not with the sentence ending particle. Yeah, 難しいな. The
よ
particle is also a sentence ending one, and it indicates that a speaker is offering new information or a new perspective to the listener. There are many patterns of use for it, but overall, if you think it pretty much always has an informative tone to it, you can get by with it just fine. In Kansai-ben, this yo becomes
や
as a bonus though. Kansai-ben has one more particle to use instead of yo, the
は
particle. Although this particle exists in standard Japanese, it is commonly thought as a female-specific sentence-ending particle. In Kansai-ben though, there is not really any gender distinction. You can also emphasize its meaning saying
わい
instead, which is funny to me because I'm Brazilian. If you know, you know. But wait, we're not done yet. There's one more particle that has a function close to you, and that's
で
or if you're feeling very manly,
ど
which is more comparable to the often inappropriate and not advisable for non-natives
ぜ
particle. The
か
particle is mostly used as an interrogative particle. It's similar to a question mark. To be more linguistically precise, a particle and a punctuation mark belong to two completely distinct categories. In practice, however, it's fine to initially think of it having mostly the same function as a question mark. Casually though, you can just drop the particle in speech and make a change in the intonation so it sounds like a question, just as you would do in English. Try to hear the difference in the following audios. One of them is an affirmative sentence and the other one is a question. The only change is in the intonation.
そうですそうです
In Kansai-ben though, in casual speech, not only
か
can still be used as a particle depending on the subregion of Kansai,
け
is also common. The
に
and
え
particles are often taught together because although their functions are grammatically different, this distinction ain't immediately obvious. Ni is a target or destination marker, so it tells you that something is going somewhere or exists somewhere. Well, as per usual, there's more nuance to it, but that's the basics. The
え
particle is used for direction, even though a destination is implied, as it is done with the ni particle. For the a particle, we focus on the journey. Now comes the tricky part. Depending on the context, these two particles are totally acceptable in standard Japanese when we're talking about a destination, even though there's nuance to its uses. In Kansai-ben though, most people just use
え
anyway. Now, when we're using ni specifically as an objective particle, as in
買い物に行く
standard Japanese doesn't really allow the
え
particle to be used instead. But we're not talking about standard Japanese here, so yeah, in Kansai-ben we're allowed to do just that and use
え
instead. There are other particle distinctions and nuances here to discuss, but the ones I mentioned are the main ones. Now let's have a quick bonus section, which is the flag time. By the way, just as a quick disclaimer, the flags I designed for my videos and articles are just for illustrative and geographical representations. I'm more than aware that languages are not exclusively tied to nation-state or political entities, and therefore are not represented by flags. With that being said, the flags I designed are meant to serve as a kind of a visual shorthand for the cultural and regional aspects I talk about, as well as being an extra fun thing I like to do because flags are really cute. As per usual, I've designed a flag specifically for Kansai-ben, which is the one that you have seen in this video's thumbnail. My reasoning for the blue color was the palette of the Kansai region prefectures. Kyoto, Osaka, Nara, Hyogo, Shiga, Wakayama, and Mie, almost all of them have this bluish color to them. Osaka in particular have this dark blue as its base color. And since Osaka is usually seen as the face of the Kansai dialects group, I chose its hue to be the starting point for my design, and just changed it slightly so it could look as vivid as the Japanese national flag's red. As a bonus though, I've also designed a flag for the Tsugaru-ben Japanese dialect, a less known but still notable for being extremely difficult even for native speakers dialect, spoken in western Aomori prefecture. And yes, that's a sign that I want to make an article and video on Tsugaru-ben eventually. Now let's breathe a little. After the intense section on particles, let's talk about some more arbitrary oddities of Kansai-ben. This section is all about word choice, and although there are no overall rules to be taken here, due to the unfortunate, or rather fortunate, nature of historical linguistics, the differences in lexicon are a very important and characteristic part of this dialect group. The first two noticeable and more widely discussed differences here are in the words
ありがとう
and
こんにちは
which in Kansai-ben changed to
大きに
and
毎度
respectively, although this last one is more often associated with commercial greeting specifically. Another common word, which my weeb viewers might have heard quite a few times as well, is
アホ
which is a way of calling someone silly or idiot, although it is way more endearing than, which anime culture has made sound tamer than it is. In all seriousness though, don't use the word
バカ
unless it's very justifiable to do so. This is far from being an exhaustive list, but here are some other word differences you might stumble upon in Kansai any day now.
本当
Becomes,
ほんま
ダメ
becomes.
あかん
そうだね
An affirmative sentence ending grammar constriction becomes,
せやで
難しい
becomes.
むずい
Not to be mistaken with
まずい
a word common in both standard Japanese and in Kansai-ben.
違う
Becomes.
ちゃう
Not to be confused with
ちゃう
for complete actions.
なんで
Becomes.
なんでやねん
さようなら
Becomes.
さいなら
よい
Becomes.
ええ
Not to be confused with as an affective copula. There are many more vocabulary differences, but these are the main ones that I wanted to talk about. Hopefully this video was informative, although by no means an exhaustive explanation of Kansai-ben's features. That was my take on condensing the information I searched about it and making it relatively easy to digest, even if I'm not so sure about the conciseness of that section of particles. Once again, if you're interested in knowing more about this topic, I have an extra section on pronunciation and pitch accent, specifically for the Kansai-ben dialect, on my Substack article. So if you're interested in learning more about this and are willing to help your homie out, definitely check my Substack. But even if you don't feel like contributing, I have all my references even for this paid section in the article as well. So you can definitely check everything that I quoted and talked about in this video in the references that I have used. In the meantime, I'll keep studying and searching for cool topics in different languages, and I'll be around next time with something cool for you. ありがとうっていうか、おおきに。じゃあね。